Okay, hey Tasha. So tell me what you hope prospective viewers will take away from your documentary, Sitting Back the Buffalo.
You know, we're in really challenging times, I think. And, whether we're looking at what's happening across the border, whether we're looking at, within our own area, we're looking at climate, all of that. And I think, one of the things that I got taught by the people around me who are more wise than I am is we have to be reminded of what we're wanting. Like what is our vision for what we want to see? And that's what I want people to take is it's a vision of hope. It's a vision of abundance and health and wellness of not just ourselves as human beings, but of the land and of other beings that we share this land with. I hope they take away a notion of relationality, how, we've been taught by all of, all the Euro-Western thinkers to think of ourselves as most important as human beings. And I think that's leading us down a path that looks pretty dark at the end of it. Um, and so what does it look like when we shift that to valuing the water and the land and animals and birds and valuing them for what they bring um, and in their own right. So, it's a film that, I really think about a lot about what people will feel. Um, and but also, what people will think. So, yeah, that's a great question. Thank you.
My pleasure. So who are the key figures that we see in this documentary?
So I started doing Buffalo work as part of my academic work 10 years ago. More, and before that even, but I was more learning and reading and thinking and writing, but I actually started, going sort of, boots to the ground kind of work, and supporting the Buffalo Treaty. So I started traveling and learning and seeing people at different Buffalo gatherings and being so inspired by these amazing Buffalo champions, right? Buffalo advocates. So those are the people in the film. A lot of them were people I knew already that had such amazing stories and were being so, thoughtful and innovative on how to restore Buffalo and how to restore our relationship to them. Um, so they're people who are leading, this effort in terms of, yeah, restoration that's Indigenous led.
Okay. And were there other documentaries that informed your approach to working on this one?
Yeah, I think every film I make, I spend time with my executive producer, and we talk about form, right? And what's the approach? Yes, the story, always the story, it's always story, but it's also, the form of it. And I had never made an essay film before. Um, and I just thought like how can I do this in a way that's very much from an indigenous perspective and how what is the structure of an essay film, what would that look like? And so and so thinking of it in terms of seasonality, thinking of it in terms of what we do in the present is for the future, but we also need to know our past. And so, weaving that together and not losing sight of, the visuals, right? And the, making this journey cinematic. So we're not just hearing words, although you do hear me talk, you hear other people talk, but we also really like weave in the visuals of the buffalo so that audience members tell us this all the time that they've never had the opportunity to get a sense of what and buffalo really are and what they're really like beyond what you see in Hollywood movies and westerns, right, where the buffalo are stampeding and and everybody's it's like they rarely stampede. They're very deliberate, they know their territory, they know their land, they know they like they've been here for millions of years. Like they know themselves better than we know ourselves, I'll tell you that much. But you don't get a chance to see them, and so, we get to see them in the different times of the year. And of course, the best part is when the calves are born and they are the cutest. And we had a little joke where if we were in doubt of what to do, it was like, oh, put in a baby buffalo and everything will be fine.
That's hysterical. Do you feel cinema, just generally speaking, is well suited for the indigenous tradition of passing down information orally?
Yeah, our stories were told again and again so that every time we heard them, we had a deeper message. And for anyone who watches films over and over again, like I do, I'm like, that's part of it, right? Is you experience it once, but there's some that just pull you in and you want to hear it again, and there's a deeper meaning revealed. And I think, Indigenous film and Indigenous documentary will often do that. There's a layered way of telling the story. Um, and I think, being able to I think, stories are about our imagination. A well-told story, you start to see it as you're listening, right? You see it in your imagination. And that's kind of how I look at my films, is like, what would I want to see, in this moment? And um, so yeah, I think it's why it's a form that Indigenous storytellers are drawn to, because of all of those possibilities.
Great, nice. Which contemporary indigenous filmmakers inspire you right now?
Oh goodness. Um, I would have to say, um, I really, you know, one of my contemporaries, Lisa Jackson, she's got such a deeply and profoundly thoughtful approach to the way she tells stories. So, her film Wilfred Buck is so phenomenal. Um, I've long been inspired by Alethea Arnacook-Baril. Every single short she's made is just tells you a story that is at once familiar, yet something in a way of seeing something that you haven't thought about before, and it's so thought-provoking. And I think uh, her series North of North, her and Stacey McDonald have created this beautiful, funny, and yet at the same time just heartbreaking way of depicting the complexities of our communities. We've been represented by others since the beginning of film. We were like the first film subjects, and people got it wrong, and continued to get it wrong. And I would say even today continued to get it wrong when, because non-Indigenous filmmakers aren't understanding all of the nuance, and aren't, I think, often are not exploring their biases. And so they can replicate things that are harmful. And so when you see a show like North of North that just is so self-aware, um, and unafraid and brave and beautiful and funny. I can't wait to see season two. So, documentary, drama, animation, experimental. There's a really, so many amazing filmmakers out there. It's exciting.
Did you know Jeff Barnaby?
I did. Jeff and I actually, when my first documentary was Two Worlds Colliding, which was about the Starlight Tours, in the Saskatoon City Police taking Indigenous men out, in the cold, in the winter. And one of his shorts was premiered at that same time. And so we had such an amazing conversation because he was so, I mean, we were both in our 20s, you're just getting going. And he was he had a lot of admiration for the courage, I guess. And I hadn't really thought about it. I just did it. It was a story I needed to tell, and I was in a position to tell it. And but I appreciated, his expression of admiration of courage. He's like, oh, I can't even say what he said because it's not appropriate. But he was just basically like, amazing. You did, that you did this. And we followed each other's careers, and he was also, had so much courage in his storytelling, um, and and clarity in his vision, and it could make you squirm and be uncomfortable, and that was exactly what he wanted you to feel. And I think that's exactly what audiences need to feel sometimes when it comes to Indigenous stories, those tough stories. um, it's okay that, people feel uncomfortable, and when we're really reckoning with our history and with our current times. And I think that, again, that goes back to the incredible spectrum of Indigenous stories and the kinds of filmmakers that are making work. You have these hard, truthful stories, and then we also have the balance, right, of things that give us hope, and often both at the same time, right? Um, so yeah, I'm was a huge fan, and my son, when I told him that Jeff had passed, he was really upset because he wants to be a filmmaker, and he said, I had so many questions for him, and I couldn't wait to see what the next film was. And I think we all felt that way.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. That's going to mean a lot to a lot of people, I'm sure.
Oh,
Back to sitting back to the Buffalo. How many people were on the team of this documentary?
oh God, so many. We had a big producing team, that, started from the beginning of, getting this film, financed and helping me have enough budget to realize my vision. We had such a great, camera and sound team. We had two DPs. We had our main director of photography, George Hupka, who also was a producer, and we also had a wildlife cinematography team. So they went out, they were the ones out for, like, 3 in the morning, get buffalo in the morning in the wintertime, that the kind of dedication that takes. We had Indigenous trainees come on board and do work in camera and sound and editing, directing. So that was really wonderful. And we've got a great team now that, is also still working on the, maximizing the film's impact. And um, we're going to, continue to share some of what we've learned on how to do that. Because I think it's kind of a new field, impact, and there's certain films I think that benefit from having the impact element once the film is out. So yeah, it was a big crew. I didn't ever count them, but we did a lot.
That's cool. That's great. What are the key lessons you learned about documentary filmmaking from this experience?
What did I learn? I actually think I learned from the buffalo. I think that with documentary, and I mentor people now, and I say you can have the best plan, and it's so well thought out, and you've got all these great people lined up and locations and everything. You can have this amazing plan, and it could go sideways. And sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes we're human. We make a decision. It's not quite the right, for whatever reason. And I always say that's the beauty of documentary, is when something goes sideways, it's an opportunity to get somewhere you didn't know you needed to be. Um, and then it's about how you respond, right? And what you capture in those moments. The buffalo taught that again to me. It was like, oh, this is what they're wanting right now, so we're gonna go do that. So it was just that sense of, like, giving up control in some way, which is hard for filmmakers. We all have that, but just giving it up, and following a different rhythm. And I would say that, that was how it worked with the film. We just all accepted that this is the today's plan, and it may or may not go that way. And either way, we're going to get great footage and hear great stories, and we'll put it together in the edit. So yeah, some things went exactly as planned, some things not as much, but in the end, we had such amazing. It was a tough edit because we had such good stories.
Oh, all right. Are you ever tempted to do fictional cinema?
Yeah, I am. I'm doing that right now. I have my first feature film will come out later this year. It's an adaptation of my first feature documentary, Birth of a Family, that I came out in 2017. So I co-wrote the script and directed it. So I'm really excited to share that. And I have some scripted television projects that I'm working on. And I'll always love documentary and continue. I've got one that's just in the very early stages, so not ready to talk about. But I think it's such a beautiful form. We have a short film in imagineNATIVE called Graduation Day that I actually co-directed with Charlene Moore, who was the sound person for Singing Back the Buffalo, but I also mentored her in the directing because we were on these crazy long road trips with lots of time to talk. And I'd be like, what do you really want to do? And she's like, I really want to direct and produce. I'm like, okay, let's talk about that. Um, so that short, I think there's just stories that come sometimes, and I just know I'm like, oh, that'd be a beautiful film. And if that one I didn't have time, but I made time because I'm like, this is a beautiful story, and it's about a Cree grandma and grandson who graduate to get high school together on the James Smith Cree Nation, and yeah, we're really excited to premiere that at imagineNATIVE.
Oh yeah, Charlene's great. I just talked to her at noon. It's 12:46 right now. I just
I
talked to
know.
her. She blew me away. She
She's
was so impressive.
amazing. She
Yeah.
really is. Like, like mentor. It's like, oh God, like I learn from her all the time. So it was such a fun collaboration, and we hope to continue working together.
I asked her, "Do you do a lot of interviews?" She said, "No, not even." I was really
So
impressed.
smart. She's so
Yeah.
smart, and yeah, and just loves film, is so steeped in it, and always has some great things to say. So yeah.
Oh yeah, she's got something to say. So, what was
Yeah.
your favorite moment shooting sitting back at the Buffalo?
Oh, I think I just I don't know if I had a favorite moment. I'll share one moment that I did have. It was when we were down in South Dakota, and I had to. We were just letting the DP film the herd. We'd taken the side by side out there. It was a beautiful day, and the herd was coming in to drink, and they take turns. They're so beautiful that they don't all crowd in the water. It's why they preserve riparian areas better than cattle. They literally take turns. And so I was just sitting there off to the side, and they're filming, and I don't need to direct them. They're going to get the best shot. I trust them. And I just was sitting there in the sun, smelling the grass, watching the buffalo take turns, having a drink, watching the calves play. And, I just had this moment of like, this is the best. Like, it doesn't get better than this. And, I got to have a few moments like that over. And as a director, you rarely get those moments where you can just soak it in, and you're not problem solving or figuring out the next shot. You're just, so I love that part. I love that pace where we did have time to do that. So
That's
yeah.
great. That's great, Tasha. Thank you so much for your time. I had a lot of fun talking to you today. Final question: what does the Imagine Native Film Festival mean to you?
I started my career at around the same time imagineNATIVE. I think I missed the first festival, came to the second, and came throughout my career, learned a lot, at the different industry events and panels, and um, met my, people who are my dear friends and cohort, and people who inspire me. Um, it's been so exciting in this last 5, 6 years where the amount of filmmakers is grown exponentially. And I remember there was a moment, I think it was the 2019 festival, and there was a group of us that all kind of started at the same time, and known each other's work and supported each other. We were having dinner, and we were saying, there are so many filmmakers here we don't know. Isn't that amazing? Because it used to kind of be where it was the same people making films. We'd see each other. There'd be a couple new people every year. That year, it was like there are so many people that we don't know, and that is the best indication of how much our it as an indigenous filmmaking, how much it's grown. Um, and it's, large, Imaginative has a big role in that, bringing people together, providing our audience for our work, the encouragement, that we get from the festival and that have gotten over the years has been huge for me. And also just the opportunity to come together. I always have lived in the prairies. I've lived in all three now, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, or Alberta. I'm from what's now known as Saskatchewan. Um, it's a smaller industry. There aren't as many peers. And so Imaginative was always a place where I could go and talk about my work and talk with my peers and share and get advice. Like, I'm having this issue. How do what do I do? And someone would have ideas. And, it was just such an important place and continues to be. And I'm so happy I get to come I have a lot going on and I'm like carved it out. I'm going. I have to miss the first day, sadly, but yeah, I'm happy to be coming.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Michael. Okay.